Tranquilo. is our regular town council meeting, which is today is Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. We have all of council present. Let's call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you decide to join in the invocation, please do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fraser, you're up.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for all things. We ask for your strength and continued guidance as we lead and make decisions to foster a beloved community. We also take the time to ask you to heal Cashin if it is your will, and give the Toomer family the courage and fortitude to endure this battle with him. We thank you for the resolve of a beautiful community and ask that you continue to protect and guide us all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
And thank you very much, Bridget. We have the adoption of the agenda. Stephen, is there anything that you see needing changing?
Yes, ma'am. There's been a couple questions raised around item under formal agenda X5 on the ATAX funding, and my understanding is there may be a motion upcoming to address that.
Okay. So there's all other things with the exception of
Outside of the Ovarian Cancer Month and you wanting to hold that, I think that's at your discretion and doesn't need to be amended.
might move it, but we'll keep it on the agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. He made the consideration of removing formal agenda item 5, and I think we need a motion for that, if so.
I move that we remove agenda item X5, the consideration of the ATAX recommendations, from the agenda to refer the matter back to the ATAX committee for further consideration in light of the fact the unencumbered, unpledged ATAX funds are currently less than what the ATAX committee thought at the time of their recommendation.
Your second?
Second.
Any discussion? Can we do this quickly, because we do have we have groups that are probably hoping we're passing this?
Yes, ma'am. Our goal would be to have a called meeting to reconsider and bring it back to council in the October meeting. Not a called meeting for council, bring it back to the October council meeting. A called meeting for the ATAX committee.
A special
Sorry about that.
And they don't need the applicants again to rearrange their lives. They just need to relook what they thought. Great. Any other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's fine. And so there are no other items off the formal agenda. Perfect. We will move on to adoption of the minutes. It was August 8th, 2023 when we last sat here. We've had them in our packets. Do you see any changes? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 8th, 2023?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. And Lauren. Is Lauren here for ovarian cancer awareness? We will read it, but I would like to give her the chance to accept it. So we will move that down after either public comment or communications from mayor and council, at which time we'll go ahead and get it in the record. Next, we have public comment. Public comment occurs at our council and all commissions, I think, in the town. Speaker is limited to a total of 3 minutes per meeting, regardless of whether the person is speaking on their behalf or as an agent for others. Meeting attendees may not donate, transfer, yield, or give all or any portion of their speaking time to another person. All public comments are to be conducted from the podium and directed to town council as a whole, and not to any member thereof. All speakers shall be mindful and respectful of those participating in and present at the meeting. You'll be expected to be in a civil manner in your language and refrain from comment or behavior that involves disorderly speech, action, name-calling, personal attacks, threats, obscene or indecent remarks, or disruptive actions. All speakers shall confine their comments to the issues under the jurisdiction of this council. You shall not use the public comment period to promote, advertise, awards, businesses, services, goods, or candidates for public office. Any speaker that violates these rules may be ruled out of order by the presiding officer. Any person whose comments have been ruled out of order shall immediately cease and desist from further improper comments. The refusal of an individual to desist from further improper comments may be subject of removal from a meeting and/or a citation under 2.49 of the code. These are written on the back of your public comment cards, but I like to speak in public and have it for the record. So we will start with public comment. Our town clerk is in charge of that. Who's up?
Skip Hoagland.
Mr. Hoagland.
Skip Hoagland, Windmill Harbor. First, Ms. Sulka, it's better that you do not seek re-election for many reasons. Your corruption increased over the years, and it became more obvious to many that both you and your lawyer Finger highly profited from your town jobs, from your increased real estate sales and Terry Finger's increased realtor, builder, and developer clients. This greed and conflicts has also resulted in overdevelopment, increased traffic, increased accidents, and increased deaths, and also increased the pollution from runoff to many of our creeks, marshes, estuaries, and our beloved May River. I have lived here for over 50 years in this area. It is way past time for a regime change. Also, your choice for your replacement, Larry Toomer, who we all know you control, basically is what I call your lapdog for many years. Many know you will guide him from behind the scenes. Toomer is just another long-time entrenched insider. He must be removed. Mr. Toomer basically sold his soul, and he followed you, real estate sales, more clients for Finger, with total disregard on the future impact of our environment. You would think Toomer Seafood would understand all this. Sadly, an oyster knows more about pollution, traffic, overdevelopment, and accidents than Larry does. Larry should focus in his retirement on environmental issues and try to fix and improve on the harm and destruction done by his votes to help enrich Sulka, Fingers, and others. Mr. Toomer will never be voted in as a Sulka replacement. In fact, the new mayor will clean house, and they will terminate Finger as well and restore proper, legal, transparent government to Bluffton and all its good citizens who deserve better than what they now are getting. Perhaps the destruction some call progress is too late, but we can try to fix it and clean it up. I want to add today, aid tax funds being illegally issued and the chamber presentations are fraudulent. And the chamber illegally uses millions of tax funds secretly for illegal advertising sales to pocket obscene profits, even a $500,000 salary for Sulka's friend Bill Miles, who she also harmed the Greater Bluffton Chamber. Visit Bluffton.org should be owned by the town, not the chamber, and not developed in Canada, but locally to support local business. What you're doing in so many ways is so illegal, it's so criminal, it's so sad. And you know what, Ms. Sulka, you sit up there and smile, but you know what, I'll give you $1 million if you prove me wrong. I'd love for you to debate me. And you know, I'm also offering a $50,000 for anybody who provides me information for the arrest, conviction, and imprisonment of any local official, any lawyer, any CPA in this county that can provide that information. And I'm looking forward to that. And we're getting some of that information. So that's all I have to say, and it looks like I've got,
Thank you, sir.
My time is just about up.
Yes, sir, right on the minute. Thank you, sir. You need to sit down so we can call the next public comment.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll do that.
Ben Greeley.
Okay. I'm here by Lake Greeley with the POA.
Mr. Hoagland, I can do this in my sleep.
Ms. Sulka, let me tell you, Ms. Sulka, let me tell you about a POA. A POA,
I learned about
a
it today.
POA is,
You're out
you
of
might
order,
not want to hear
sir.
my voice, but a POA is a legal law document
We're out of
that makes
order.
it, basically
Please
makes
sit
me
down.
become Lynn
Sir,
Greeley.
please sit
I'm
down.
so sorry, Ms.
Hoagland, you've been called out of order. You've been asked to sit down. You are going to be called for disrupting the public meeting.
If you finish my 3 minutes, you won't have disruption.
Public comment is,
You can either sit down or we will have,
Just let me finish.
you can sit down or we'll have you removed, Mr.
In
Hoagland.
Hilton Head, they let me finish.
This is not Hilton Head, Mr. Hoagland. You can sit. Chief, will you please address the matter?
I think
Thank
you just ought to let me finish my 3 minutes and we'll be fine. So I ask you to please respect the POA legal doc.
public comment is over. Is Lauren
finish my 3
here
minutes.
from Ovarian Cancer Awareness? Is Lauren here? Is Lauren here?
I did it electronically.
Did you do an electronic, Sharon?
I did.
You may come up, name and address. You can come up. I'm sorry. We all make mistakes.
Hey, you know what?
Thank
I'm
you
all
for-
about mistakes. I do it sometimes myself.
3 minutes. Name and
Yes, ma'am.
address, please, ma'am.
Yes, Sharon Brown, 163 Buck Island Road, Bluffton, South Carolina. Good afternoon, town council people. I'd like to start out with always reading your mission statement. It says, "We take care of our citizens, the town, and each other by continuously making our community and organization better." So I'm here again talking about the wooden walkthrough that's on Buck Island Road that's taken so long to have the guardrail put up, okay? I know a lady was at our meeting and she said that it was going through the process, but I've been here, it's been over 8 months. Now I see kids riding the three-wheelers on it. So I don't know what it's going to take for it to be immediately. I think she said it costs $40,000. But in our community, come on, guys, it's a safety risk for these kids. So from walking on the side without the guardrail now to having the three-wheelers roll on there, if those kids were to keel over and go into that hazardous water, now what? So I want you guys to take a little bit more concern about our community meaning the black and brown community, because I'm certain if it was in that fluid community, it would have already been up. That's my opinion, and I earned that, okay? So also, I'm going to talk about the interns that were here this summer. You guys did a little bit better. I think you had one Hispanic, but no African Americans. I don't know what your DEI person does. The diversity, equity, inclusion person, I think, is Angie Garvin. I mean, it's got to be some way that this inclusiveness, that this young lady does her job as well. I'm not person harping about who's there, but we have to have inclusion, DEI. It should be some African Americans in there as well. So I have a suggestion. Why don't you guys try to recruit seniors out of high school in that field and then let them come in, and rather than trying to get college students, because it's not working in that respect, okay? So I appreciate if you take that note down about our seniors. Some of them are in tourism. Some of them will love to work for the town. And so that way we can get that inclusiveness. And lastly, it says, a vision statement. Bluffton, the heart of Low Country and a town that appreciates the past, focuses on today and is planning together for a greater future. I will be coming here in series to talk about dismantling Calhoun Street with John C. Calhoun name on it, because we know that Calhoun was a white supremacist who thought that racism, that slavery was a good thing. So we talked about that when Walter Wheeler Desiree was here, and it went away because they went back to college. A lot of people nowadays in many states are removing Calhoun, even his statue. We need to think about that. If our vision statement is that appreciate the past, well, we know who John C. Calhoun was. Everybody knows that. If everybody's good about having his name still here, and we are trying to move forward with diversity, inclusion, then that is still a sore subject in a lot of African Americans in our communities. So I'll be coming back with series, petition, and stuff sound like that to have his name removed off of that street. Thank you guys so much. My time is up. God bless you.
Others? Anybody? Maybe our electronics were messed up. Anyone digitally sign up that maybe we missed? Thank you. And again, Ms. Brown, we're sorry about that mistake. Public comment is over. I'm going to do communications, and then I'm going to read that proclamation. So communications from mayor and council. Do I have anything? I'll look to the left. Look to the right.
I'm good.
We had a great festival. Bridget's nonprofit she started, Blackwoody, at the Roots and River, was fabulous. It was Saturday, and it really, in the river, everything was just beautiful. So good job on that. And I probably have something else, but I don't remember it, so we'll just move on. I'm going to read the proclamation. So we actually have a person that works for us whose wife had ovarian cancer, and we started this really in her honor and now memory, but it's very important. You see the teal ribbons on the front of our town hall, and that is a sign for this awareness month. So, whereas ovarian cancer claims more women's lives than any other gynecological cancer, and whereas ovarian cancer is difficult to detect and women are often not diagnosed until the disease has reached an advanced stage, whereas early diagnosis of ovarian cancer can increase the survival rate to as high as 94%, whereas certain factors can reduce the risk of ovarian cancer and play an important role in its prevention, Whereas awareness and early detection of ovarian cancer is the best means of protecting women's lives from this disease. Whereas September has been designated as National Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, and whereas Turn the Town's Teal is a campaign to create awareness of ovarian cancer and its symptoms. This campaign was the inspiration of Gail McNeil and goes forward in her name and in her honor. Whereas teal ribbons will be tied at all Town of Bluffton buildings to raise awareness about the disease, along with the symptom and information cards that will be available at all locations. Therefore, I, Lisa Sulka, Mayor of the Town of Bluffton, along with Bluffton Town Council, do hereby proclaim that September 2023 is Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in the Town of Bluffton. Be it further resolved that the Town of Bluffton supports the Turn the Town's Teal awareness campaign. So we will get that to her. And if she comes in and you know who it is, Marcia, give me the heads up. Well, okay. And Mr. Finger, is there something you want to say on this?
No, what I want to say is that this past Monday, I have had the privilege of being on the Heritage Classic Foundation board for many years and the vice chairman for the last 5 or 6. But this past Monday, Mayor Sulka was elevated to a full voting member of the Heritage Classic Foundation, and more importantly, she will be our honorary chairman for our event in 2024. She will run the opening. She'll lead the parade, and she will do the opening ceremonies of the RBC Heritage in 2024. So congratulations.
Proclamation. If you are new to this and know anything about the Heritage Classic Foundation, it's everything that just keeps me going. It helps young people, and it helps so many nonprofits, and it's just a tournament that gives money back into this community, and it is one of the best things I've ever been part of. I got many others I'm going to be part of that are equally as awesome, but thank you. And I won't be here in April, so I don't have to miss a council meeting. Larry or whomever will be running it. Okay, public hearing and final reading. We have a couple of items. First is the consideration of an ordinance to amend Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances by authorizing, establishing, and adding Section 6, Economic Development Incentives Program. This is second and final reading. Let me call for public hearing first. There's first call for public comment on this item, number 1, under public hearing and final reading. Second call for public comment on the final reading and public hearing of item 1. Third and final call for public comment on the public hearing from item 1 under this agenda item. Public hearing is closed. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and there have been no material changes between first and second reading. Happy to answer any questions outstanding that you have on this item.
Are there any questions of Chris on this? Any questions of this?
I have an observation. I had extensive talks with Chris. I was concerned after thinking through it that, how do you measure whether you have a good incentive? We've had incentives in the past. Nobody's taken advantage of them, so then you have to ask yourself, is it a good incentive? So I reached out to some developers, had an in-depth conversation with one that we all know, and he ran the numbers and basically got back and said, I think it's a good start. The smaller the project, the greater the percentage, but the higher the cost of the project, the lower the percentage. But it's a good place to start. I felt good about that. So the only two questions I have is, how will we market the program, and what does success look like? That's my 2 questions.
So I will say that we are in the process of engaging some local developers as business owners to work on ways that we can potentially market, discuss some ideas that they might have, as well as some ideas that staff may have on promoting not only the idea of the ordinance, but also trying to recruit professionals in the target industries that we're trying to reach. As far as measuring success, I believe that is something that we can bring forth to you in future workshops, and maybe even something we talk about at our strategic planning. But definitely, just like we did with the DRCI KPIs and how we measure success there, I think it's a worthy effort to do it for this program as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So we're starting to see people come in, we're going to have someone come in front of us today, and it was not something that they probably were aware of, even though I think their attorney sits on the Don Ryan board with me and heard the presentation. So the presentation is important to get out. I also would suggest getting with staff if they are Buckwalter West and they fall within those areas, to at least let them have ideas of where help can be, if they will really focus on areas that we know are important. So that's just a quick thought, but really sharing that presentation is huge because it's eye-opening to see that in the new Riverside area, we have 2 pharmacies. Like, we don't have anything, but those people are driving on the roads to get to wherever they go, and we hear complaints of traffic, and I just really feel that too could be something we could measure as it builds out.
It could be something, an abbreviated section we add to our mobile town halls to make sure the public's aware that this is out there and this ordinance is available to them.
Any other questions? There were no changes. It was a great presentation. I hope everyone gets a chance to see it online. Is there a motion to approve second and final reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances by authorizing, establishing, and adding Section 6, the Economic Development Incentives Program?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We're going to take this to EDC, right? The next
EDC.
meeting?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Really great job,
Thank you.
staff, on all of that. Next, under public hearing, is the ordinance to amend certain sections of the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, including amendments to Article 3, Application Process, Section 3.2, Section 3.14, Section 3.17, Section 3.18, and Section 3.25. Article 4, Zoning District, Section 4.4, Article 5, Section 5.8, Section 5.11, Section 5.13, and Section 5.15. Article 7, Nonconformities. Article 9, Section 9.2, Section 9.3. I should make Kevin read this. Section 9.4.1. So this is a public comment. Let's do public hearing.
This is a public hearing, yes.
Okay, so there is a public hearing on this item. This is second and final reading. So I'm not reading that over again, but first call for public comment on the agenda item, which is number 2 under public hearing and final reading. Second call for public comment for this public hearing, which is item number 2 under public hearing and final reading. Third and final call for public comment on the public hearing of item 2 under public hearing and final reading. Public hearing is closed. Kevin.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a reminder, so this was the part of the strategic plan where you asked for an annual update of UDO edits. We went through this process. Here's a timeline of how we got to the point where we are today, of the meetings with both Town Council and Planning Commission back in January, through Historic Preservation reviewing items, Planning Commission holding their public hearings, and then the first reading back in July. From the first reading, obviously everything was passed at first reading. From that time, there were some questions, comments that came up about a couple of the UDO edits from that July meeting. With that, we have formulated some kind of splitting some of these items out. So at first reading, we discussed everything, but we do have items that we're proposing that they are withdrawn from this request. When we get to the motion, there is a two-step motion. So we'd approve certain items and then to withdraw certain items. So I'm not going to go through all of these at one time, but you can see most of them are related to historic preservation. And then for the final readings of the items moving forward include the construction compliance, outdoor sales definitions, some nonconformities, household and family and single household unit definitions, use descriptions, dealing with the highway corridor overlay district, lot and building standards. All these items were part of that staff report and you have in your packet. Public notice and signage. All of these items were reviewed for the text amendment and they do meet the criterias. These were the Planning Commission's recommendations over the 4 months that they reviewed them. Your actions this evening are you can approve all of the UDO edits if you so choose. You can approve with some conditions or to deny the request. Again, this is the second and final reading. I'm happy to answer any questions, and if you so choose, I do have 2 motions. One motion would be to approve with the items listed above, and I'm going to skip over to the next one. The second part is to withdraw the items that are related to the historic district. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? I'll look to you guys. Questions? Anything?
Go ahead. You have one, Fred?
Yes.
Page 68.
I don't, is there a specific item?
Under contributing structures, item number 2, it mentions financial resources of the owner and/or parties in interest.
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand what that means.
That's one of the items that's being withdrawn this
Okay.
evening.
Okay.
And the goal is that
All the
we'll-
red is withdrawn.
well, all of the items that were listed specifically in the historic district, that item included,
Okay.
is being withdrawn. Our goal is to bring that to strategic plan as well as having a joint workshop.
Thank you
Then-
very much.
Then it'll go back through the entire process.
Thank you.
Yep.
So the way I understand it, the items we were having a lot of questions and concern on were removed. This is more of the housekeeping
Yes, ma'am.
side of it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Hamilton? Mayor Pro Tem? Ms. Frazier? Okay. So we're going to have 2 motions to keep all this in the right lanes. Is there a motion to approve the following certain amendments to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Article 3? Is it okay if I just read the sections?
Yes.
Thank you. Section 314, Section 317 on Article 4, which are zoning districts, Section 4.4, Article 5, design standards, Section 5.8 and 5.13, Article 7, nonconformities, or Article 9, definitions and interpretations, Section 9.2 and Section 9.3, as well as Section 9.41.
Mayor, I'm not sure you said 3.2 when you started your motion.
Correct.
I think you meant to. You may have just glossed. You might have just passed
Really
over.
glossing over to include Section 3.2, as listed in the proposed motion that's on the screen.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Did that cover it, Terry? Thank you for checking that. All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And the motion to withdraw, so we can move this on to another time to talk about. Is there a motion to withdraw the following certain amendments to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 3, the application process, Section 3.2, Section 318, and Section 3.25. Article 5, Section 5.11, 5.15, 5.15.8F, and Article 9, Section 9.2.
Mayor,
What I miss?
and before you move forward, can you go back to the previous motion?
There's certain text in this one that are approved, and there's certain text in that one that are
In 3.2?
that are being removed. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. since
Okay,
it was
within the
listed below.
body.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So is there a motion based on what I just mentioned?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? That's not going to be confusing if you're saying Section 3.2 on each
Yeah,
one.
that's,
We
backup.
have the sections. Yes.
the backup will address it.
Yes, the backup will be there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, we'll keep a note of that at our workshop too, so I'm sure we have it. Okay, all in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Kevin. Now we're on to the formal agenda items of the meeting. Consideration of an approval of initial master plan for parcel B1 within the Buckwalter Planned Unit Development consisting of 21.92 acres that includes 16.02 acres of residential development and 5.9 acres of commercial development located in the northeast corner of the intersection of South Carolina Highway 170 and Gibbet Road.
Great. Thank you,
Kevin.
ma'am. As you just stated, we are here for parcel B1. This is a location map just to kind of give you some context of where the property is located. You can see to the south is Gibbet Road. Okatee Highway, also Highway 170 is running from the southwest corner to the northeast corner, and this subject property is located along 170 there. Just an aerial map where you can see that across the street is Cypress Ridge, and then behind this property with a wetland buffer in between is Lawton Station. So the applicant, which is Brian Whitmer, Whitmer Jones Kiefer, is here on behalf of Millstone Ventures and the property owner, Parcel 8A LLC. And they're requesting this initial master plan. As you stated, it is for the 21 acres of mixed-use development for residential and commercial development. This is part of the Buckwalter Commons land use tract in the Buckwalter PUD. All of the land uses that are being proposed are allowed in that general commercial use, which does include the single-family, multifamily, and then retail and office uses. The proposed development is subject to a full review of the development plan as it moves forward. Also, this is in the Highway Corridor Overlay District, so the Planning Commission will see both the preliminary development plan as well as the architecture, landscaping, and lighting as it moves forward. One thing to note is that the property will conform to the requirements of the Beaufort County Connects 2021 bicycle plan at time of development plan, and we'll give a little bit more information here in the future. So this is the initial layout of the site. Again, the orientation I put Highway 170 is towards the top. Gibbet Road is to the left. So you can see the circulation through this site. Just wanted to be known that the adjacent property is the Buckwalter Crossroads Master Plan. And you can see these pink lines right here represent the connectivity into that master plan. So when you were to, if you were to look at it again on that overall site here, so from if you're in along Gibbet, technically you'd be able to travel through this property into Lawton Station and ultimately all the way up to Bluffton Parkway. So the goal is that that connects all the way to the Parkway without having to get back onto Highway 170. You can see we have a proposed convenience gas station located on the corner. That's parcel A. B is the office retail buildings that are located on the, which would in essence be the north corner. And then the applicant that's here this evening, Millstone Group, they are proposing the apartment complex that would be at this location. It's approximately 150 apartments in that. Again, from the concept plan, you can see that it is part of the Buckwalter Commons, that general land use that's allowed. Planning Commission held a meeting, a public hearing on July 26th. They recommended an approval with the following conditions: is that the statement be placed on the master plan declaring that all development within the master plan should conform to that Connects plan, which in essence is a 10-foot pathway along 170. And then it's the responsibility for the installation of that pathway along 170, and then that the site layout and all subjects are all parcels are subject to a full town review and approval of development plan submittal. The master plan meets all the review criteria. I'm happy to discuss them in case you have any questions regarding any of the 8 that are listed there. This evening, you have the action of approving this application, approving it with conditions, or to deny the application. From a process standpoint, you can see that we've held pre-application meetings, check-in meetings, review by the Development Review Committee, Planning Commission recommendation, and then this evening we're in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and that the applicant is in the audience and can answer questions as well.
Mr. Hamilton?
I need you to go back to that frontage road, please.
Just
When that frontage road crosses the entrance to Lawton Station, how close is that to the gate?
let me go back to the aerial to give you a better representation. So the subject property stops where this yellow line is, and you can see that the main entrance is here to Lawton Station. So this property does not physically connect to Lawton Station's entrance. That's part of that Buckwalter Crossroads master plan. So if this site develops first, they'll come to an end point, and then once Buckwalter Crossroads starts to develop, then they would connect into those and then ultimately into Lawton Station.
Okay, you introduced that crossroad, up about that frontage road earlier. So who's going to be responsible for building that frontage road?
The applicant.
The same applicant.
The applicant is responsible for the portion, it's the road, it's the roadway, it's a connective roadway throughout the entire development. So as they're developing the site, the road is the connection.
Okay. When you introduced that, you said because of the 121 apartment complex, they wouldn't have to use 170. They could use this frontage road to get to the Parkway, Bluffton Parkway.
Yeah, what I'm referring to is that in time, as all sites are developed, they will be connected together. And in the future, you would then be able to, you'd be able to drive through parking lots to be able to, it's not going to be a two-lane road in the sense of you're going 35 miles per hour on it. It's going to be a parking lot, two-way access that you could drive through parking lots and get to the parkway.
I've got an idea. Is it like Target to BMW?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, no, not BMW.
Cadillac?
Yeah.
GMC.
GMC, is that what you,
Yeah.
that's the connectivity portion
Yes.
of it? Okay.
Yeah. If you were at Food Line driving through, getting through Target, going over to GMC, you're driving through the drive aisles of a parking lot to get through it. Yes.
So show me where would it connect?
If you give me one moment here, I do have a copy of the Crossroads Master Plan, and maybe that will help.
Okay.
Bear with me, please. Okay, so the subject property is, if you can see my cursor down at the very bottom here, it's just this white kind of blocked area. You can see that these yellow lines, purple, pink lines pick up at the property line and ultimately connect through the entire development, and then you get up to the parkway. Again, this parking lot.
Show me in proximity to the gate at Lawton Station where that frontage road would connect to the other side.
So, again, so here's the subject property is just kind of this blanked area right here, what they're proposing.
So you can't. So it's not on this map. Then.
Hold on. I have a previous version. So what we can show, this might help, and I'll zoom in on a little bit of it. So if you're on Gibbet, so here's the subject property right here.
Right.
You could enter into this driveway, enter up through the apartment complex. You're driving through the apartment complex. This is that office retail development. And then this is the development of the Buckwalter Crossroads. Obviously, nothing's out there right now. Then you would be able to drive through. And then here it is the main entrance to Lawton Station. You'd be able to then cross through additional development with some right in, right out locations along 170, continue all the way through, keep continuing, and then have an opportunity to access the parkway, the Bluffton Parkway.
Thank you, sir. Just go back to Lawton Station for me. Just
Yes.
go back to the entrance.
Yep.
That's all.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Yep. You mean zoom
Yes.
a little bit more? Let's see if that's about as much as it's going to zoom on me there.
Okay, that's good enough. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay.
So if, right now, there's some what I would call curb cuts kind of already out there that go into the dirt areas. That's the approximate location of where those connections would be.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Questions?
I do have a question.
Frazier?
Is this particular project being built in phases, or is it all being built at one time?
That would be a question for the applicant. I'm not sure what their development phase would be.
The reason that I asked that question is more so not a responsibility on the applicant, but just something from my colleagues and I to think about as we've had discussions with like the school district before and working in harmony, because what becomes alarming in me and just hearing that with the 150 units and with seeing the complex, the apartments that are already there, and knowing the 2 feeder schools that area is going to service is going to create problems that we already have in terms of River Ridge and May River High being those two schools that are already at capacity. So understanding if it's being built in phases or developed at one time would kind of help understand it in terms of like where we need to intervene to help mitigate if we can.
I would let the applicant speak on that.
Do you want to hear questions first and then bring the applicant up, or how do you want to?
I think that might be best, and then that way they can answer all of them at one time.
Mr. Schindler?
Kevin, the amount of density, that's the maximum that could be put on here. Am I reading that right?
The 150 units, it's on the approximately 16 acres, so that's roughly 10 units per acre. We do allow for more, a little bit more density per acre, but just based off of the development, based off of the stormwater regulations they have, based on the fact that they have wetlands on the site, that they are able to get in essence the 10 units per acre.
And I see the required parking is 337, and that's exactly what they're,
Yes, sir.
and how we run into this thing with parking all the time, where everybody bills the minimum, and then you got cars in the road, and, we've seen it so many times. I wish that there was some way that, people would understand that more parking will still be, it's needed, more than the 2 cars per house, because a lot of these people are going to be young people, and are going to be younger families, and they're going to have daughters and sons that have their own car, and there you go from 2 to 4 and 5, and I see it every day in my own life. So
We can work with the applicant during the development plan process to see if there's areas where we can get additional parking.
I do, but if I may, I would like to wait till the applicant comes up and ask.
Have one more if you yours.
Okay, a couple of questions. The parking, I know we've done this before, even here, and we've gotten a verbal, even looking at pervious, what's the term? Not non-paved.
Yes.
Parking, where there are places for guests and things, and people have complained, but after the fact, you can go through the 3 places we suggested, do it, and they followed suit, and it works, because there are going to be parties, there are going to be children. I know this is multifamily, but, security, you got to think about that too, and I know that's up to them, but I think there are places you can fit within the buffer without clearing the buffer, since there's such a big wetland behind it, and you can look at it. Question on the road. If you could go back where I can see the site to the north of it, and also while you're on there, show me where the pathway connectivity. I didn't see that in your presentation, but you talked about it, and maybe I blinked. I
So
don't know.
I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can see where it says pathway.
Okay, so it's right. I didn't see it on the.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but yes, it is there.
And then go to slide, no, go to the one, I'm going to find it for you. Where you showed their layout, but to the north of it is actually the platted lots on whoever owns the rest of that property. Maybe it's slide 10, maybe? No, it isn't.
Okay. So this, let me go to this one. It's a little bit easier. And please excuse this. This is not an official exhibit. So
This isn't really it, but I can go to it. So the subject property, go to the one that shows the road, the pink road in it. I can help with that. To the
Okay.
north of it,
Bear with me,
go
please.
slow and I'll tell you to stop. No, okay, go back there. I don't,
the one he showed.
yes, go right there. Okay, look at subject property, and to the north of it, see the 2 platted properties right there?
Yes, ma'am.
Those are 2 individual properties that could be sold on their own, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now remember that and go to your line where it shows your roadway.
Okay.
Because it looks like you're almost causing those 2 properties undevelopable if they have to have a pathway and then 2 roads going into their lots, but we are determining what, sorry for them, they should have come to us first kind of thing, or?
Yes, ma'am, and that is on that Buckwalter Crossroads master plan.
Okay.
So it is known that that's a connection point right there.
Those are the two connection points.
Yes.
So who builds the road east to west that's shown on your other? And let me go back. Is this going to be built to the property line, not an 8-foot buffer?
We are making them build it to the property line, so that way, when the next development comes up, there's no question as to they are using that as the roadway to start their development.
So
it's just a continuation.
So the developer to the north of this has to build the east-west road to connect these two stubs to go down?
Let me get my cursor here. So the area you're referring to is, I don't know if you can see my cursor here. Yes, so they would have to design it to make sure that they are providing a connection here. They're using this roadway, a connection here. So they could potentially have parking in this area. They could have the building up towards the front. They could have the building towards the rear. It just depends on how it is designed.
But for this council in the next year or so, we need to have that in the record, that's going to the property line.
Yes.
We're not have a 2-foot buffer.
No, ma'am.
He always says, no, I'm not touching.
No, ma'am.
And that owner will build that road because that's the road that will connect to keep wiggling through to get to the parkway.
Yes.
Okay. The units not used, if you find through, because don't you still have steps to take with stormwater and all of that? And
Yes, ma'am.
looking at generally where it would place, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So units not used, do they go away?
They do not go away. So the owner of the units, which is, I believe is Mr. Zen, who owns the parcel 8, he owns all of the units. So he will give the units to the Millstone Group, and then they will develop those. So they will make sure that once they have all of their engineered plans together and say like, all right, guys, it's only 147 that we could make fit, then he's only selling the 147 because he has his own personal bank of units. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trying to get rid of units.
I know.
Okay, I think those are my questions. And then I think you have another question, or do you want to add a question?
Yes. How many commercial square footage is going to be in this development?
Let's see here. Bear with me while I get. I've got a 4,500 square foot gas station, and that's 17,700 square foot of retail office over here. Highlight the B1, B2, and B3 buildings.
Are they identified, or that's to be determined?
I believe, sir, that is to be determined.
And how many? I think I thought it was 121, but I think the mayor said 150 apartment units.
150, yes, sir. That's what's being proposed.
How many of those are going to be affordable?
That would be a question for the applicant, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So any other questions of Kevin? And I think now they've been able to hear, maybe introduce the applicant.
Sure, and if you want me to.
And we'll start with Bridget, then Dan, then Fred.
And if I can just do a quick recap, which was Ms. Frazier requested questions about phasing of the development. Mr. Toomer had some questions about the density as well as parking. Ms. Solka, you had questions about parking as well as extra parking areas and the road connectivity, the number of units. Mr. Hamilton had questions about the square footage and the overall unit count and affordability. So.
And then Dan had some questions he didn't tell us about.
You are correct.
Holding it close to the chest.
Yes. Mr. Whitmer with Whitmer Jones Kiefer is here. So he's the applicant, and then I'll let him introduce and go from there.
Great. And as he comes up, hey, Brian, you can come up. I asked Chris, but have you met with them since we passed on first reading our economic incentive?
I have had a conversation with one of the owners of the Milso Group just to let them know that this evening we're having our second reading and that that this would be an opportunity for discussion with staff to be able to see what could potentially happen.
Especially B1, B2, B3.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay. Hey, Brian.
Whitmer? Yes, with Whitmer Jones Keeper. We're the applicant and the land planners on this. We have our whole project team here, so I'm going to answer a couple questions and probably defer to the developer on a couple others and see if you have questions first. That I can
Well, we're going to go to Bridget first, since she.
Yes, I'm going to go through phasing. I think I'm going to let the developer answer that, so that's
Okay.
going to come. Parking, I think we can work with town staff on overflow. We're hitting 2.25, which is the requirement, but we could work on overflow parking areas and look and see if we can do that for events and when they have visitors, so we can see if we can get that handled. Affordable housing, I'll also let the developer talk to that, because that is theirs. Were there any, I know
Dan
Mr.
has a
Wood.
question of that. Dan, do you have a question of Brian or the applicant?
I do have one on that one for Brian, and it may have been touched on a minute ago. So the town is working very diligently on creating impervious or pervious surfaces. We're looking at that through WAPAC and everything. I don't know if any of that has been, I see the retention pond there, but has any of that been taken into consideration on this site?
I don't think we've got to that point yet. I mean, we're at concept plan, but that's something we could look at with town staff. I know with the new stormwater ordinance, it requires a lot more than just a stormwater pond. There's multiple ways, and pervious parking helps in that calculation.
Well, we're looking at spending potentially millions of dollars if approved down the road, and so we're doing studies as we speak. Kim's over there nodding her head, and I think it's worth a visit to have that conversation on behalf of the developer as well as the town.
I think at the point we're at, yes, now would be a good time to do that, and we definitely can do that. And I think some of that to get our stormwater, to meet the new stormwater ordinance, I think that's going to be helpful.
Thank you.
If I may, the same team is working on other projects that we have under review right now where they do have the pervious parking. So it can be done, like you said, it's concept level, so they haven't spent the money until they have the approval in order to move forward with that design.
Any other questions for Brian, or do maybe introduce the applicant and stand by him?
Yep, I think I'll let the developer come up and answer those other couple questions for you.
Introduce yourself, please.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Adrian Dannemiller. I'm one of the owners of Millstone. Like Brian mentioned, we have our team here tonight. We've got the other owner, Millstone, a couple of our development managers with us. Happy to go through the questions that you have.
Jump into it.
Just want to jump into it?
Phasing?
So my question was for your build out, are you all going to be phasing that? Or are you building all 150 units at once?
Yeah, so we will be building all 150 units at once. But what that looks like is we've got probably 7-8 more months of approvals, and then we're putting in a lot of infrastructure for this because it's kind of raw land right now, so there'll be a lot of site work. We'll have 7-8 months of that, and then probably another 18 months to build all the structures. So we're talking about a 3-year roundabout cycle to get everything to where it's actually ready to occupy. So we've got some time there, but we are going to do kind of the first phase is the multifamily and all the infrastructure to serve the outlots and make them ready to develop and kind of kickstart growth along this corridor and in this master plan area by providing all that infrastructure, accesses, circulation roads, utilities, et cetera.
Thank you.
I'm going to let y'all ask Larry's question.
Thanks for being here and answering. Did you just say that you're going to build all the residential units and the infrastructure first?
Yes.
And the plans for the gas station and the other offices are going to be built when? or?
Yep.
I'm just.
Yeah, so our initial project that we are in control of and leading associated with this master plan is the multifamily, and then making that investment in the infrastructure to kind of set up these commercial out parcels to be activated and developed, like stubbing utilities to the property line, stubbing the circulation roads to the property lines, those types of things. And so the other out parcels, we don't have those under contract to develop ourselves at this time. We're interested in doing that, but we need to. The agreement we have with the land seller is that we're going to develop this first parcel first, put in the infrastructure, and then the development of the other out parcels will kind of come in, fill in after that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of not wanting to hear, but that's what you answered me. One of the situations that we have now is we have more people and less services in that area than we need.
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple of kids one that lives right across the road from it, one lives down the road from there. And what we are trying to encourage is more commercial development out there to service these people.
Mm-hmm.
We hear about it every day, and that's not exactly what I would think would be the best thing for the town of Bluffton, to build more houses with no services. Naturally, you have certain rights to do what you want to and all that, so that's more of a legal question as well, in my opinion. I'd love to see less density, more parking, and more livable places that people will be satisfied with and happy with, and not cramming the maximum amount of density on every piece of property that's yet to be developed. But that's just Larry's opinion. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, and just in response to that a little bit, I hear you about the community's need for the commercial uses, and like I said, that is something we're interested in. We're kind of taking it one step at a time. With the smaller commercial uses in a tract of raw land like this, one small commercial use, the project isn't of an adequate size typically for that project to carry the burden of extending all those utilities, 500 yards down the road to service, one relatively small TAR project, office building and stuff like that. So I feel like that's one thing we are really bringing to the community is we're going to get all these infrastructure extended through this area so that these commercial out parcels will have a much lower financial burden to be developed. And I think you'll really see that my hope is you will really see that spark the development of those smaller commercial uses on the out parcels. Somebody's got to take on that big expense of extending all that infrastructure into this area from, the sewers across the street and get the water line stubbed in and all that kind of stuff. So we are doing that, which I hope will benefit the community.
Yes, sir.
Hey, what I heard that you're going to do the infrastructure, but you haven't sold those other parcels yet.
We don't own the other parcels, so we're not buying them at this time.
You don't own the other parcels?
No, we're authorized by the owner of those parcels to pursue this master plan, but we don't own those other parcels.
So you're asking us to approve something that you don't own?
Right. There's an application process for that where we get permission from the current landowner because we need a master plan amendment to build our project, and he grants us permission to do the master plan amendment on the whole area. So since we have consent, I believe we're allowed to pursue the master plan.
So my commercial question you really can't answer because earlier the other guy says it's to be determined, and plus that's someone else's decision, right?
Right.
That's all right. Now, the units that you are going to build, how much have staff talked to you about making those a percentage of those affordable?
Yeah. So we have had some discussions with staff and other folks with the town of Bluffton about affordable units on this project. We're definitely happy to sit down with staff and continue to discuss the options for including some affordable units in this project. We haven't done that up to this point because it's not a requirement of the zoning of the PUD, and we didn't really know about it being a prerogative until just very recently, so we haven't had a chance to really fully flesh that out and how we might accomplish that, but we have been having discussions about it.
Do you have the stomach for 20%?
I got to think about that. So when you start a multifamily development like this, if you're going to include affordable units, it's very important from the very start that you set up the project and pursue it in a way where you've structured it so that it can accommodate the affordable ask, since the affordable component. So since this project was not zoned for that starting out, we didn't start off that way. We made big commitments on putting in the infrastructure and all the money we're spending to do that is costly, and we're making that investment in this tract. And we did that because one of the reasons we did that was because doing that and affordable is a lot for one project to take on its back all at once. So to answer your question, we can look at doing some affordable. We can talk with staff about it. We can see if we can get something in there. But we've kind of spent a lot of our investment in this project to develop this raw piece of land, bring the infrastructure in, set up those commercial out parcels. So I'd ask you to understand that and kind of understand that one project can't solve all the problems. We can solve the problems of getting the infrastructure in here and helping activate this corridor and hopefully kickstart it for the types of commercial developments you want to see. But we can only stretch it so far.
I understand the financial burden that you just described, but we also have a inclusive burden that we need to address. Affordable housing, affordable living is very important to us at this time. And I hope I speak for all of council and all of staff. Okay? So take that in consideration.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Dan?
Yeah, I was going to go down that same road. You have an opportunity here that most developers do not have, okay? You walked in tonight, and we just passed that ordinance that you've been told about with staff, the economic development ordinance. It does not only apply to your commercial portion, it applies to your residential portion. So you are the first candidate to walk in here that has an opportunity to do something grand for your community. And I wanted to ask you, and this is not a trick question, are you a citizen? Do you live in Bluffton?
No, I'm not.
Okay, you don't. But your consultants do, and they have a fine reputation. And I know because I walk and I go past their houses and stuff like that. So we want to implore upon you to step up and be a hero. You have a chance to do that. Jim Matei out there at the Madison stepped up to the plate, and he didn't have the advantages that you have in front of you today with this new ordinance that we just approved. So what I want to say is, I know you have to get your infrastructure in. We understand that. But you have not built any units yet. So it should be a clean slate for you to go back to the table to talk with your other partners as well as staff and say, okay, let's take a really hard look at this. What will you do We have a major problem here because the units you're building, where are they going to, the workers leave Bluffton now. A lot of them leave Bluffton because, or they come, in other words, they can't afford to live here. Let me say it that way. They can't afford to live here. So people are going different places. And then you see all the apartments going up at Argent Way. Probably some of those, or a lot of them, used to live right here in our own city limit. So you can get impact fee waivers. We haven't even come up with what we would negotiate. We've got percentages in the incentive program, but there's other things that might be on the table if you ask us that we could talk about. So you have a chance here to really distinguish yourself and make a mark as a business coming in right after this incentive program got passed. And I hope you will definitely consider that. I speak for all of council. I hope you will consider that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you pointing that out. This morning when I was going over the meeting packet, I went over it last week too, but I was going over it again this morning, reading up on the Economic Development Incentive Program, talked with Kevin about it a little bit, and I would absolutely love to sit down with staff or any of you and talk about how we could use the features of that program to just bring this within reach so that we can make a difference and include affordable in our projects. Also, we're not just here for one project to one and done it and then get out of town. We really like this community. We really would love to do more projects here, and we would love to work with you hand in hand to make sure that the future projects that we bring, knowing what your priorities are and what the town needs more so now than when we started on this a year ago and we weren't as familiar with the environment here. Now that we know that, I definitely think there's an opportunity for us to work together and bring projects that more fully meet the needs and kind of the priorities and serve the residents of Bluffton. So I appreciate that, and if it's okay with you, I'd definitely like to continue that conversation.
I think Larry has one question.
Yeah, just one thing I was kind of thinking about. When you were answering Fred's question, you said due to the high expense of putting in all this, clearing this raw land and putting in the infrastructure, not just for the residential units, but all the stubs out for the commercial and all that. It just dawned on me, I'm sure you are being compensated for doing some of that off the cost of the property from the owner that owns it all, correct? That's just...
So basically the agreement, this is maybe a little outside the box to talk about this, but yes, I got to make sure I don't get myself in trouble here. So we are a construction company as well as a developer. We build all of our own stuff. We have a whole construction team. So we can build infrastructure. We can build it right. We're used to doing that. And so we could kind of find a fair, agreement with this property owner where we can still pay him a fair market price for the land. And then we also are going to build this infrastructure. So it's a balance. It was negotiated.
Right.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I was just using that as a, it sounded, at first you sounded like you've got it skin as close as you can skin it with putting in all this infrastructure, but, and then when you said you didn't own the other property, I was, well, if you don't own the other property, surely the owner is giving you a little better deal on the property for doing all that infrastructure, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. And our infrastructure, the way we've designed this site is so that we can do the vast majority of the infrastructure on the property that we will own. It's kind of organized that way. So.
And I think saying you
that may be beside the point.
You own everything but A, B. I don't think you own it yet. You will own everything but A, B1, B2, and B3 because it looks like it's all been subdivided.
That's right. Just as Kevin kind of is displaying there, everything in the green. So having the property lines drawn in that way allows us to put in 4 of the 5 access points, all the streets, and get the utilities run through the site from end to end so that they're available to the commercial uses and the outparcels.
Got a question and a comment. the roads will be put in first, right, Kevin? The roads, they're not going to be the last minute thing. We're putting in all the roads and infrastructure in as he's building the apartments.
Yes, ma'am. That's part of that construction compliance process.
All the pink.
Yes.
Okay.
The entire pink.
Now,
Not,
let me
How about
stop right there.
V1 and
So,
V2?
yeah, so like parcel A, the parking lot for parcel A, that portion of it is might not necessarily be in because of they don't know when the convenience store would be in there. What we will do is we'll work with them, and I believe that, and this line was just kind of me putting on there just to represent where the apartment complex is. When we go through the development plan process, we'll make sure that we'll have the connection here, we'll have these connections in place, and then all of this gets developed. The road, the final layer of asphalt is in place as these buildings are coming online.
So tell me what won't be built when we start seeing shovels in the ground in 3 years. What won't be built? I'm really worried about it because I know a lot of C-station owners, and I can already see someone coming back. We can't put a road here. We need 8 tanks, and we need to turn it this way, and we need to do this. I'm just looking out for the town and not having a fight over a road after everyone's gone. So I'm hesitant on that. I get it, but you know it. You've been here. You know what you're going to hear.
Yep.
I'm going to remember it. I'm going to be over there coming to public comment telling you about it.
We only have 3 minutes. Just
I might get powers of attorney and have 25 minutes. It's not against this developer at all. It's just we have been here enough to see things, and he has a great saying, we know better, so we do better. And don't tell me the pink isn't going to go in, because the roads have to go in, and it is a cost.
yes. So like this portion of parking lot here, represented on the below B1, B2, like that area would not be developed until these buildings are coming online.
But will there be some easement that
Yes.
dictates that it has to be there?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it has to be where the gas station's going?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is my comment, and I'm very transparent. You might not believe it after public comment, but we have all been meeting on this whole thing. And Larry, what everyone said, I think we all agree. I don't think you see any difference of opinion. But we've got to start seeing the commercial. And I called you because I thought as mayor, we should start calling people and saying, welcome to town. Now, this is what we expect. And I hope you appreciated it. But, to know we've got to have the commercial. We're only adding to the pain if we don't start bringing services to that level. So I do think commercial is better, but I don't have your checkbook. So I think there's so much that you don't yet even know about that could help you, that you could talk about. I'm just going to throw things out and maybe no, but any impact fees, seriously, that causes the homes not to be affordable. Find out what your rent is, and be bold. It can be 30, and you say, I need this amount, and this would be, and I know you got lenders and all of that too, but what's the gap difference? How can we at least start with 30, go to the Regional Housing Trust, come to us for our incentives that we're doing, and see how we at least commit to trying. You're young. You're probably one of the few I've seen stand here, and even when I talked to, sounded like you seriously are passionate about it. I wish you lived here because you'd understand. And ride around. Take advantage. If you're here, ride around with some of us and try to absorb it, because we used to be a tiny little town of 742 when I moved here, and everyone was quite happy at 742, quite happy. We're 37,000 now. And we have watched it, and shame on us if we don't try. And I don't know your partner, but I think I see it in your eyes that you're willing to try. So commit to trying. Don't tell me you can't, because the man on New Riverside did it. And he could have said too, you can't eat this apple all at once, but you can eat it bites at a time. So I'm passionate. You're not. Maybe I found my new role in January. I'm so proud of these council members for staying on it, knowing good and well you can do all this without coming through us, really. But please try to be that, because you would be a hero. So that's what all I got to say.
Mayor?
Yes.
I have a question. Let me just
ask Kevin a question first, if I could. Kevin, could you go through with council and lay out for them, if in fact they approve the initial master plan tonight, how would any affordable housing negotiations then transpire? In commercial.
So with that economic development program, we'd sit down with Chris, his team, and then we'd start to sit down with the applicant to see, they, in essence, cracking open their books, seeing what are some of these costs? What are some of the items that we can then bring forward to say, we can help to, you're looking at offsetting costs in order to get units. So, what's that magical number? I don't know what that magical number is.
But if council approved the initial master plan tonight,
yeah,
they would then have the ability to build 150 multifamily units.
Yes.
Without a required affordable housing percentage attached to it at this point.
Correct. That is correct. Yes. Because
That's
it's
what I
not
wanted.
required. Yes. Make sure that's not required by law. Yes.
Please remember, regional housing trust.
Yes.
Along, if you could miraculously figure out some commercial entities, then we have this hand-holding of our staff to get you to the finish line. If you will do something and build something that we perceive to be super important, and I think you can look around at some people and think we don't handhold all the time, but that's important, and all the developers said it. We just want to get to the finish line. So we have worked on that to get someone that if you fulfill our wishes, and it's going to make you good, and we're all happy, and the residents are happy, I think you'll be pleased. Not that you have any miseries, but to really get to that finish line of doing it. Yes.
If I could say too, I know I'm going to be hard on this. The commercial need is already there before you build these 150 units. Okay.
let me ask it out loud.
I would love to
Let me ask it out
figure
loud.
out somehow so that we can get that done sooner than later. Sooner than the people would be a great idea. And then when the people come with the 150 units, that's just another shot in the arm.
What are some of the commercial needs that would be best suited to this area?
Medical is on the top of it, whether it's
Pharmacy?
a dentist or an eye doctor.
Primary care,
Yeah, primary care. The
veterinary, pharmacies, daycare.
the same things that we use every day.
Yep.
Basically the same thing. And what we're hearing and what we're seeing is with the amount of people that are living in that general area, I'm just saying general, west of Buckwalter, they're having to come into town or back on the east side of Buckwalter to get any of their necessities. And I mean, it's obvious. Chris gave us a great graph on that last meeting. But if Chris, correct me, I think we're 70% of the people and 30% of the services. Am I in the ballpark there on that?
Yeah.
West of Buckwalter. 30% of the people, 70% of the services this side, including Old Town and all that. So before we keep adding more people with less services, we need some type of commitment to jump on some commercial. And, I know the money's in the housing units right now. We all know that. We've been watching it the last few years. But allowing more units without the services, it's not really making sense for us as a governing body.
Yeah, thanks. And just to respond to that a little bit, I am totally with you. I'm right there with you. I get it. And we are primarily a multifamily developer. We have done dentist offices and things of that nature before, so we can do that. And we're interested in doing it here, especially if we can get matched up with somebody who's going to be the end user and we can kind of get that kind of set, then we can build the suit, and we do that all the time. One thing to just I would just appeal to you to keep in mind is that these out parcels that are here, you know, shown on the display here, they're so far away from being developed right now, and you guys need those uses because to develop that out parcel, you got to bring the sewer 500 feet from across Gibbet Road, put in a lift station, 500 yards rather, and then run it all the way down to those out parcels. It's cost prohibitive. It's not even close. That's one of the things we're doing is we're doing that so that it won't be cost prohibitive. And that's why I say I think it can really spark those uses coming in. To a certain extent, the buyers typically, the way it works with these types of developments, with the community retail and office, they can't get their bank loan until they can prove that the utilities are provided to the site and they're there available for them to connect. So they can't really put together the development of those dentist offices, accounting offices, you know, office community retail uses until somebody does what we're about to do and sets it up for them. So the timing will be such that, you know, if approved, we'll come in here, we'll start doing the roads and the utilities and all the infrastructure first, like Kevin was just talking about. We'll get those stubs out there as quickly as we possibly can so that those have the ability to come online. Our project takes a long time to build. It's bigger. They could be done before us if we get those utilities in there and get that teed up for them. So that's our aim, is to do that.
I have Bridget and then Dan had a question. Bridget?
More so a comment. I just want to say I'm ecstatic to hear that, you know, you have the appetite to listen to some of the concerns here. And we definitely don't want the takeaway, though, or I certainly don't want the takeaway to be that we just have a sole focus on commercial without keeping that tandem that we need the housing, especially the affordability component, because we're in the same instance now where we do need the services, but who's staffing, you know, those services once they get here, because there's no housing for the staff that's going to occupy some of the services that we need. So it has to be kept at the forefront that we're doing both in sync with one and not a saturation of one or the other, because it gives us the problem we have now. We have too much, at one point it was too much housing, not enough services. Now we have all these, the need for the services, but not enough housing for the workers who are going to in turn keep those things going. And so I don't want anyone to hear in this discussion as we're talking, even those at home, to think that we just want to attract, you know, developers to the area to build this commercial. We need both. We need the affordable component of it for those workers who are going to be servicing it, in addition to the services. So as you know, take that back, keep in mind that we need that harmony of both and not one more than the other.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. Mr. Wood?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Finger's comments were made so we understood that this is a one-vote option. Tonight, we vote one time. And I do want to say, before I make my final comment, I think you're sincere. I think you seem to have your heart in the right place. I think you do have passion for your development, and that's all good, and it's needed. But for me, I want to see the exercise play out. I don't want to go just on good faith. I would rather table this thing tonight, let him go through the process with Kevin and staff and go through the options that we've talked about tonight, about all kinds of things, to nail down the commercial a little bit better, to talk about what kind of incentives that may reveal themselves to you. We don't even know what they all are yet. Till you deal with the town manager regarding possible affordable housing, crunch some numbers and see what it actually looks like and see what you might be willing or able to do. Otherwise, it's over. I mean, we're not going to know after we vote what you decide to do, because you have by right.
Okay.
That's just my comment.
Yep. Thanks for the comment, Councilmember Wood. So just to address that a little bit, we've been working on this project for a year and a half. We didn't file a year and a half ago, but we also have had an extended approval process because we originally filed as a master plan amendment. We went to Planning Commission. It was cleaner and better for everyone for us to file as a new master plan. So we acquiesced to that. We wanted to be good to work with staff. And so we refiled as a new master plan, went through. Developments like this are on a stringent timeline. And we have commitments to the seller, and they need to move through the approval process expeditiously so that we can follow through and stay in keeping with the timelines in terms of our contract. So it's also, the zoning of this project is already done. It's a PUD, it's zoned, it is a by right use to build 150 market rate units on this property. That's my understanding of the PUD, and we can bring other team members up here to discuss that if you want more information on that. We are willing to work with the town and to look into the economic development incentives, and especially if you will work with us and hear about what we need, and we can work with you to give, and we can collaborate, then I believe there's ground there that can be gained and taken advantage of and capitalized on. It is to take the time. The second reading of this was tonight. I talked to Kevin about it earlier today. It's my understanding that there's not.
Only one. Yeah, it's the first time we've seen you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about
Okay.
that. Misunderstanding.
You're fine. But we're listening to you, see.
Yeah, that there's quite a bit of development that needs to be done on the program before the nuts and bolts of how it actually works can be implemented into a project, like the application process, what the incentives will be, and all that stuff we're happy to work on. But this project, it's way down the tracks. You know, we've been working on this. We've spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of resources on this project. And to cause it to wait and have to kind of wait in a holding pattern further than it already has before it can move forward, that would cause us a great deal of hardship. So I would really prefer not to go that route, but to continue to have conversations, work with town council and staff so that we can better address with this project and future projects what the town needs in terms of the commercial and affordability.
Bridget, and then
My question is to Terry in terms of what contingencies could we put in place to achieve some of what was discussed here, specifically in terms of the affordable housing requirement that many seem to be in favor of. Only because I've been on the other side and I understand definitely the delays and the timing and the holdup that comes from a process that can't deviate from. But when individuals are following and are compliant with our UDO and our process and other things, and willing to provide the type of concessions that we want, how are we able to work alongside that and not prohibit that, more so like not punish someone who's following us? But I do understand that we don't want to, jump the gun and then miss the opportunity to achieve what happens here. So Terry, is there any way, if there was an appetite for a vote on this tonight, to put some type of contingency in there to ensure that we don't lose that opportunity to capture affordable housing requirements on this?
Well, I think that a lawyerly answer to your question, which probably will not be succinct enough for you, I think you have a number of options. The council has a number of options. You could move to table it so the incentives and the affordable housing could be fully examined and brought back to you. You could move to approve the initial master plan and put a condition on that blank percent would have to be of the multifamily would have to be affordable. Or perhaps we could figure out, if I gave some thought, I could probably meet with Mr. Nestor for a minute or two, and perhaps the approval is, I understand the developer would like to get going on infrastructure as soon as possible, and probably, I don't know what your contractual relationship is, where you are closing-wise, et cetera. but there may be a mechanism or a motion that allows them to proceed with the proper commencement of all infrastructure that would be necessary, and leave the affordable and the commercial component for perhaps next month with some negotiations and some discussions between the developer and Kevin. So I think those are at least some of the options off the top of my head right now.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, Bridget. You heard our options. Which one would you think would be feasible for you?
So the option that would really work great for me is to approve the project with the conditions that are on there now. And then let me work with you like I've said I would and represented I would to discuss the affordable, the economic incentive
You got to give us
program.
more than that. You got to give us more than that. That's right now. That's where we are. I mean, but you're not addressing what we need.
This one's a little tough for me. I may ask for Walter's help, or maybe him and Terry will talk a little bit.
I'll pause.
This is a master plan approval. Okay, so this is about where the buildings are shown on the site. It's about the layout. It's about, do we meet the ordinances and the design requirements? And are we putting the accesses in the right places? Are we doing our stormwater detention and all those factors the right way? This site is zoned. So to put a condition on our master plan approval that modifies our zoning approval that's already in place, that seems to be not correct to me to do that. We will volunteer to work with you, and if I'm wrong, absolutely, you can step in.
You don't mind if I do?
No, go ahead.
Yes. Please note that we cannot require them to do affordable housing, and you cannot base your decision off that if your decision is going to be a negative decision. So please tread lightly of what you're asking.
While they're talking, I have a question. Do you have so there'll be apartments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apartments, and you'll manage and rent them out?
Yep.
I'm just more curious, have you done a research here to know what truly is considered reasonable? Or are you more luxury? Where are you thinking? And maybe one bed, I'm not using this to decide. I know that, believe me, I know this is all bullshit, but I appreciate you
very clear.
taking care of
Yes.
us. Units, have you gone to the 1, 2, 3 bedrooms? Have you talked about rental prices? Have you done all that? And in all of that, have you factored in, I have to account for this impact fee of 20, whatever the tens of thousands that we don't charge, the county does.
Mm-hmm.
Have you factored that in? And if that weren't part of it, would you have a different rental amount? Like, does all that?
Yep. So the plans are pretty conceptual at this point in time, but they are scaled out to know how many units we have. We're not quite to where we know how many 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms yet. That comes in the next phase when we go through the development plan approval process. Trying to answer all parts of your
Well, that's
question.
okay.
there.
Rental amounts, like,
Yeah.
have you come with a plan in your head, or are you going to wait to see what?
Right. So with our developments, they are Class A, very nice finish, granite countertops, tile showers, the nice stuff. Won't spend any time talking about that. So the market rate units are just kind of at the market rate for apartment rental units. In any market that's struggling with housing, we find that multifamily housing, like our housing, it helps to add to the housing supply with the overall affordability issue. It's because of a supply and demand imbalance, so it helps to add new housing. And, shoot, I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, just a rental. Because we went on another lane. Are you 30? Are you Hampton? Are you 3,200 a month? Or are you thinking for 1 bedrooms 1,400 a month? I think that gives some pause to people. And if you could, because if you ever come back before us and you don't do what you say you're going to do, it won't be pretty.
Yeah.
This I can promise these guys.
Yeah.
So commit to it. But if you're saying a one-bedroom is 1,400, but then we can find a way to waive your impact fee on that, and you're like, gosh, well, that I could do it for 1,000. You're talking the same language. But I think we're missing that I don't think we should be asking, but I'm throwing it at you to think about it. You're not far off unless you're thinking you're going to rent them for $3,500 a month.
No, we're not in the $3,500 a month.
And are you going to use algorithms that make everyone mad? So, those are, I know we're beating a dead horse, and I know where we are legally.
It's basically, we're kind of like middle-high product line, so the rents are going to be in line with where just kind of like not middle high, like just
It's okay.
a little higher than the middle, of market rental
Okay.
rents.
I mean, you can say a number.
Determining what those are 3.5 years from now, that's why I don't want to say a number, because they could be, higher than they are now, probably will be, could be the same.
But you're going to have to pay your impact fees up front when you get your building permit. And I just going to trust my gut right now, because I don't want to hold up people who we can't. I mean, I guess we could flat out deny, but we have to be very careful on that. But I've also have friends that have gone through this, and it's very frustrating. So that's where I'm going to end.
Council wanted to say something.
I'll get it over here.
Yeah,
Will
You're
you?
not getting anywhere.
Will you say?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Walter Nestor, and I'm with the law firm of Burr & Foreman, and we represent Millstone Development Group in this application. And this has really been wonderful dialogue, and we very much appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity to work with staff and council. This, however, is an initial master plan. We're seeking an initial master plan that talks about layout and connectivity. Density and uses is not really that part of the approval process. We appreciate the interest, but there's not really any way that we can condition approval of an initial master plan on something that we might be able to do in the future. Mr. Dannemiller has done a wonderful job of responding to council and trying to respond and show their interest in developing this project in this community, but it's extraordinarily difficult for them to be able to negotiate on the fly. And the dialogue with staff and the dialogue with council about the economic incentives, those are wonderful developments. But those are down the road. Even though it was approved tonight, implementation of that is down the road. And Millstone is under contract to purchase property from a developer that has been in this community for a long time. This is as far as any project in that Buckwalter Commons has come. And there is a great opportunity, as Mr. Dannemiller said, for all of those things. But it's an initial master plan amendment. It's impossible for them to stand here and say, and to agree, to bargain with you about what they might be able to do. I haven't consulted with my client about saying that, but it is difficult and it's not impossible for them to do that.
Stop real quick. We're not negotiating. We're not bargaining. So don't say that, please.
Yeah,
With all due respect.
Yeah.
This incentive is here and now, right? We passed it. We don't have to wait next budget year. And I know this is new to you. You were a year and a half, and we hadn't even created our regional housing trust fund. But it's a mission. It's on our covenant, on a town hall that's been there for decades. So I want you to not think of this as a misery, but how can I help? So that's where I'm going with that. Like, commit to sitting down and really trying to figure it out, not just to say it and then move on and develop. So thank you, but we're not bargaining. We could table this with a vote.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with table, Mayor, is, again...
But it's our right, though. It's our right to table. Just like it's your right to stand with what you believe and how you want to develop it, it's our right to table.
Yes, sir. However, that action might result in coming out of contract and all of this being for naught. And I'm not saying that for certain, but we're on a schedule, and what we're being able to do is to take a step back. We're committing to working with staff, to trying to do the best we can with the economic incentives that have been passed tonight. But if we wait, we might be out of contract.
So, and I know where that's going, I don't want to get there, but what can we get as a commitment if this goes to a vote, that there is a time frame, that there is some sitting down to really do a deep dive into what is, and I think you can tell the passion. I mean, it wasn't just, not one person and four others are like, ugh. It's a passion, and I think people in the audience understand it. We've got business owners here that get it, that, so I guess the commitment of coming back or being here and let's sit, and I'll break calendar requests and change it. I know other councilmen will too, so maybe that's the question.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So I'm going to just share a little extra discussion with you. And thank you, Walter.
Thank you, Walter,
for helping with that. So we don't we're not just saying that we're gonna look into doing affordable units like lip service. Obviously, everybody here is worried about that. That when I say that, it's an empty promise. I'm not going to do it. Okay, so let's talk about that. We currently have almost 100 affordable units currently under construction and in development. We do this in other cities. We're doing 2 projects with affordable components in Asheville. We're entitling one in Wilmington, and it can work. And there are ways that when it works, it's known up front, the programs are well defined, we can start the project off, and here's our application. When you complete the application and comply with all of the requirements, these are the incentives you get, and we can plan it all out from the very beginning. We can structure the design, we can structure the financing, we can structure the investment, all to take that into account from the very start. That is what's really conducive to doing these affordable projects, and that's why, and we love that we get the support of the communities we're in when we do that. It makes this process that we're going through tonight that's, more challenging, it makes it so much easier. And so the challenge with this one is that stuff is it's just kind of coming about. It's not perfectly, it's not well defined yet. The steps aren't perfectly clear to me. So that's why, as Walter said, it's very hard for me to agree because I don't know exactly what the application process is like, how long it's going to take. And in addition to that, I've already put together this project unfortunately, without considering it because it wasn't a requirement. So this project is especially tricky because it's pretty far down the road already. And I'm running out of time on my contract. I need to move. I need to get this infrastructure in, activate this area, and kind of get this development going. I need you guys to trust me when I'm telling you that I would love to do more developments in Bluffton. I would love to work with you on an affordable housing program that the incentives are balanced with, our cost of bringing the affordable units. It can work, and we can make some projects come to life. I mean, that's all I do. I love doing it, and I hope you'll take my testimonial that we're actually doing this in other municipalities as proof that we really do this. It takes a lot. It's really hard to describe how much planning and kind of like keeping the train on the tracks to get one of these big, it's a $60 million project. You really have to have your ducks in a row, and it has to be consistent as you move through the process of bringing the project to market. Because if things get off the tracks, the train just kind of crashes and it just turns into a mess, and all the timing's off and all that stuff. So I won't go on about that. But my point is that we do this. We would be happy to do it. We need to work together to put to define how we would work together to accomplish this, and then it's very achievable. And we have the experience, not only the development experience, but the construction experience side to be able to do it.
Can you commit to that? That was my question. What you just said, and I've been here enough, I can kind of tell people.
And
but I want you to commit that you would come and sit with whomever and let's work out one, because we do have more land. We do have things that are out there that already have kind of a minimum requirement. Commit, if you ever do one of those, you'll do more. Let's really, I feel for people who are in this way, and I guess I almost wish anybody who's looking at land would talk to us first, because we tell you what.
Well, now we know.
Because apparently it's
Yeah.
not getting to you. It's a
But
passion.
I can absolutely commit to having those discussions and working on that with you. As a matter of fact, I'd love to meet with you tomorrow morning if you'd like to. I mean, I would absolutely do that. You as well, anyone who wants to meet.
Meet with two of us, so. Any two of us, okay, thank you.
And so, oh, you have something to say?
So we're back at you, Kevin. Any other questions? Okay, so, any other questions, council? Okay. Well, I'm going to read it and then we can move from there. My goodness, is there a motion to conditionally approve the initial master plan for parcel B1 consisting of 21.92 acres located on the northeast corner of the intersection of South Carolina 170 Gibbet Road, zone Buckwalter planned unit development, subject to following conditions. Statement shall be placed on the initial master plan declaring that all development within the master plan shall conform to the requirements and recommendations of the Beaufort County Connects 2021 bicycle and pedestrian plan. Whether located on or off-site, it shall be the responsibility of the developers to install a 10-foot wide bicycle and pedestrian path along SC 170, consistent with the requirements and the recommendations of the Beaufort County Connects 2021 bicycle and pedestrian plan in conjunction with individual site development within the B1 initial master plan. And site layouts for all parcels are subject to a full town review and approval at time of development plan submittal.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Question. If it's voted down, and I don't know that it would be, but if it was, how long would it take before they can come back? Instead of tabling?
I believe it would just be they'd be able to resubmit a new application and would just follow the process. So it's only annexations, it's a 12-month.
Right.
Annexations, and I think zoning map amendments is a 12-month delay. So they could submit a new application tomorrow.
Any other discussion? Any other
question for
discussion? Let me
Kevin.
check with council. Any other discussion? Terry? Yes,
A
sir.
question for Kevin. This is the parcel of property where the current owner was attempting to convince staff that the bicycle connect was not required. Am I thinking of another piece of property?
It's still continuing.
It's still continuing.
But if we vote on this, that's a moot point.
No, but I mean, but you have consented to that.
That's
You've chosen not to, and
Yeah,
I want to make sure I'm thinking in the right property. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Hey,
Yeah, okay, 3-2. Great. I think it would be nice to sit and talk. I don't know how long you're here, but, okay. Who would like to sit with him? Anyone on council?
I can't do it tomorrow, but I would love to sit with him.
Okay, let's do Bridget and Dan.
you don't need Bridget, you need me and Dan. Bridget voted
Well, y'all
for
better speak up.
Well,
Bridget voted for
we'll
it.
get with you. We'll get your number. We'll find it. You're here.
Yeah, I will be back. I fly out tomorrow at 1. I'm available tomorrow morning, but I will be back and we can
Well, you can
obviously
meet
coordinate.
with two different groups. We just can't meet in groups of more than two.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
That's the only problem.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate the consideration of the council tonight.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, consideration of an ordinance approving a public-private partnership to develop and transfer ownership of town-owned parcels within the Buckwalter Multi-County Industrial Park. Chris, first reading.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we are here to talk about another economic development initiative, and this is one that's been in the works for the town of Bluffton for several years, and this is our town-owned property at Buckwalter Place Commerce Park. We'll go over a little bit on the background of the property and what we've done to date, the process we followed in order to get to here tonight, what was proposed as part of that, what the negotiated terms were and proposed legal conditions are, and our analysis of the project. So here in the, this is a poor color choice, but the light blue outline is the property, town-owned property in question. The darker blue outlines are all of what the town has owned. So since 2005, town has acquired 37.66 acres within Walter Place Multi-County Industrial Park. Most recently is the former Evercore Park, now the Buckwalter Park, parcel C there on that map. So the town-owned portion north of the LEC, north and east and west behind the LEC, has been identified for economic development. This project for the infrastructure, utilities and parking and site pads has been part of our approved CIP since FY17. Since 2017, there have been 2 private entities express serious interest. Ultimately, they decided not to move forward for various different reasons. So the process town staff filed to date is we published a RFP back in April of this year. We had it open for 2 months. The BCDC helped publicize this, as well as staff and local officials looked to find developers to bid on this project. It closed in June. Staff evaluated and also interviewed different developers, and staff identified, we're calling it Project TD, CSD LLC in the master agreement, as the proposal with the best value to the town. DRCI was briefed at an executive session and given some legal guidance on the proposed master agreement. They ultimately voted unanimously to support the project. The proposal that came out of the RFP was for 3 buildings. The initial proposal was for 42,900 square feet of Class A office space and flex warehouse space. They also requested 10,000 square feet of secured fencing within the site. They proposed a space for a town landing pad, small business partnerships, industrial end user and service-based to support industrial end user and service-based businesses. They identified potentially for 120 full-time positions initially within the first couple of years, and a developer investment of $7.5 million was projected. After some initial negotiations by staff, these are the kind of final terms that were proposed. The required minimum investment of the developer is $7 million. They ultimately agreed to a total square footage of 50,100 Class A office and warehouse flex space, committing again to 100 plus jobs. It could support potentially 20 plus businesses, and also in the terms is the transfer of Building A or Unit 1 of 14,400 square feet to DRCI. This would be potential space for small business partnerships, as well as Class A office, economic development landing pad space, and flex warehouse space. The town is proposing to offer, obviously, the land that we own, a not to exceed of $3.5 million for the soft cost infrastructure, parking, and building pads. And again, this has already been approved as part of the CIP budget. The current amount is inflation adjusted, but the initial budget was approved back in FY 2017 and has been approved since. Oops. It is to be considered a public project throughout the project timeline. This helps expedite some of the approvals, and town staff is agreeing to appoint a single point of contact, concierge, to help them through the process. This is a look at the concept plan. This is not to scale. This is just for a visual reference. Building C and B would ultimately be the developers to attract businesses with. Initially, in the first proposal, some of the parking around those buildings were gated off. He agreed to leave those open to public parking. In return, we identified parcel B out to the west behind LEC as a potential gated lot for additional fleet parking for that may support some of the businesses that locate there. Parcel A on the southeast corner is what is being proposed to transfer to DRCI to support economic development and landing pad space. The conditions within the proposed master agreement, it includes a early termination fee of 5% of eligible costs with a maximum of $175,000, and that's if we were to terminate for any reason at the beginning, that's how much we would owe. the establishment of a property regime. This would manage the development, the exterior, and the property around the buildings. He agreed to prioritize Unit 1, which is Building A. So that building that would transfer to DRCI in the town is prioritized to be completed first. We also talked to him about agreeing to restricted uses within the development. And these are outlined in the master agreement, but those include restaurants, personal self-storage, adult-oriented businesses, religious organizations, smoke and or vape shops, retail alcoholic beverage stores, and residential or lodging uses. Should the developer be unable to proceed with construction, all designs, plans, and specifications will be retained by the town, so that is written to the master agreement. It does require the minimum investment of $7 million. It has a clawback provision, so currently the provision says that if they don't actually invest up to $7 million, the difference would be clawed back by the town. The goal of 100 full-time employees serviced by the development, and in the case of a developer default, property returns to the town, and depending on when that default occurs, hopefully it doesn't occur, but if it were to occur, depending on the timing, that return may be subject to a mortgage, depending on the timing there. This is the preliminary timeline that he outlined in his proposal from the date of second reading approval, if it were to be approved. Months 1 through 3 would be planning and design. 3 through 6 is the final design and preliminary governmental reviews. Months 6 through 9 is through the permitting process, and hopefully the construction process would be months 9 through 24. Looking at the analysis of the project, over 5 years, there's a potential for up to 400 jobs, depending on the types of businesses and the growth they may experience. The projected average salary for the positions is around $66,000. Again, this supports approximately 20 businesses. And the investment over 5 years is $11.3 million. So that includes the town's investment, his investment, and any work done in the site over the 5 years. The estimated annual operating purchases of the businesses that may locate there is about $20 million a year. DRCI obviously would receive the 14,400 square foot building. This allows us to continue promoting economic development and supporting local small businesses. And the estimated tax revenue is around $50,000 between property and business license revenue. And again, this is an estimate because it's highly dependent on the types of businesses that locate there. I know that was a quick overview. Any questions on any of those terms or analysis?
I'll look this way first. Questions from either side? We can come back. Fred, Mr. Hamilton, Mr. Wood, questions?
Just one, ma'am.
Yes.
I don't know that we know what we're going to do. I know that when we give the building to the Don Ryan Center, and we've identified on the drawings and we've discussed daycare. I don't know how this will ever work, and you may not know until you get into it, Chris, but I guess even though, when we try to get a daycare in there, if that's what we end up doing, and then do the incentives that we've talked about tonight, earlier tonight, obviously, I guess what I'm trying to say, let me back up. It's like anything else, you can have daycare, but it may not be affordable. And so I don't know how we're going to figure all that out. I guess that's a staff issue that we'll learn as we go. That's really what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. I'll share a couple of the conditions that DRCI came out of it with, which we will incorporate with Richardson's help. One is kind of making the language, obviously including language that there's a commitment to partner with small businesses that are affiliated with DRCI, but making it broad enough in case that over the next 2 years of this development, if circumstances changes, it still allows us to go and look at other types of business that we may support. But there is a commitment to support those small businesses that are affiliated with DRCI and our partners. The other commitment I made to DRCI was to build a business plan around the building should it be approved to move forward. So yes, those details will be flushed out through a business plan that we ultimately propose to DRCI board, and if you'd like, the council as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Great. Okay. If none, Is there a motion to consider the ordinance approving a public-private partnership to develop and transfer ownership of town-owned parcels within the Buckwalter Multi-County Industrial Park? And I'm not reading the motion you put up there. Should I read that? Should that be the one? Is that more legal?
Yeah, you can.
Let me back up. Is there a motion to approve first reading of an ordinance authorizing the town manager to enter into a master agreement with CSD LLC for the exchange, acceptance, transfer, conveyance, and development of town-owned commercial property within the Buckwalter Place Multi-County Commerce Park?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Kim, approval to authorize the design and construction administration contract with Infrastructure Consulting and Engineering for Phase 2 of the pedestrian pathway project. The fiscal impact is $174,285.95. She brings it before council because it's a little bit over the amount that the public needs to know about. So
Yes,
you
they
don't
need
have
to
to be too broad into the presentation.
know what they were presenting. This is
Highlights.
phase 2 of our Americans with Disabilities Act, retrofit and improvements of our crosswalks and intersections, specifically within the historic district. Phase 1 was completed last fiscal year for a total of 4 intersection improvements along Godey Road and a section of Bluffton Road, State of Mind. Currently, within phase 2, council gave direction to staff, instead of staggering this and putting it out multiple years, to lump the rest of the historic district together and go ahead and knock this out. So currently we're proposing 33 ramps and detectable warning systems and striping within the historic district along Lawrence, Lawton, Thomas Hayward, DeBose, and Pin Oak streets. Per our procurement procedures, we put out a request for qualifications, and the most qualified committee determined respondent was the Infrastructure Consulting and Engineering. After negotiating with them to create these products for us, we are now recommending that staff authorize the town manager to execute a contract with Infrastructure Consulting and Engineering for a base price of $151,553 with a 15% contingency of the $22,000 plus some change, for a total fiscal impact not to exceed $174,285.95, which is within budget for fiscal year 24, and will complete phase 2. Phase 3 of pedestrian safety moves out into the Buck Island Simmonsville area, as well as portions of Buckwalter Park. So our next steps is, if council approves the contract and the authorization of the town manager to execute said contract, we will move forward with pulling in ICE and pulling in getting our appraisals and also our easements. Are there any questions?
Questions? Anyone on this side?
Yeah, can we
Larry?
go back, pull that back up? I thought I read on the beginning where it said,
How far back, sir? Very beginning?
one more. No. I just thought it said approved for the design, construction.
Yes, the contract includes engineer design, the permitting, easement, exhibits, construction administration.
So it's construction and all. So this is
It's an all-in.
This is an all-in. Okay. It was confusing there for
Okay,
me for a
sorry
second.
for that.
Sorry.
Well, the agenda item didn't say all in, and we had questions when I was actually approving it. So
Okay.
that really makes sense.
Okay.
So, questions? Okay. If no other questions, is there a motion to approve authorizing the town manager to enter into a contract with Infrastructure Consulting and Engineering for the phase 2 of the Pathway Safety Improvements Project for a fiscal impact of $174,285.95, which includes a 15% contingency?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Kim. Number 4 is consideration of an ordinance to amend the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances to add a new section 18-137, providing that a person who violates another with the intent to intimidate another person or persons in whole or in part because of the actual or perceived race, color, creed, religion, ancestry, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, physical. Larry, do you want to wait till we?
Go ahead. I'll do it.
Let me know before y'all leave the body so I can figure this out. Not that I have to give you permission. I've lost where I was. Or mental disability or national origin of the other person or persons is guilty of the separate offense of hate intimidation. There are 2 readings. This is the first. Stephen, thank you for taking this on, and you're up.
Mayor and council, I'll be more than glad to address this and go through a little bit more than what I have. I have very limited in here, but just to give you a small bit of background, the state of South Carolina is one of 2 in the country that has no hate crime legislation that has been approved at the state level. And as far as we know, there does not appear to be any progress on getting that done this past legislative session or necessarily going into next legislative session based on some of the stuff we heard at Municipal Association. To counteract this, in action at the state level, a few municipalities, the city of Charleston, Columbia, and Greenville, in that order, have adopted a combination either called hate bias, hate intimidation ordinances that will address some of the same things that would have been addressed by a hate crime ordinance at the state level. The language of the ordinances is what I used as a basis. I took a little bit from each of them to kind of take what I thought were the best of each of them, some in identifying what makes up the crime, some in identifying what the penalties can be and all that to make the ordinance that you have in front of you. We did reach out to the jurisdictions that have these crimes. The only one we did not hear back, and I'll thank Lisa Cunningham, she reached out to her counterparts to get that. Chief tried to reach out to his side wasn't as cooperative as Lisa's was. But Greenville is the only one we didn't hear back as of tonight. In both Columbia and Charleston, since they've adopted this, have used it about 4 times. And they've used them on similar crimes. And I'll talk about how that works on the next slide here. So the way the hate intimidation ordinance would work is it would create a new chargeable offense. That offense is not a standalone offense. You cannot be charged, even if this is in place, for hate intimidation by itself. It would be a stackable offense where if somebody was charged with, say, assault, they could be charged with assault, and hate intimidation could be added on top of it if that assault was found to be related to one of the protected classes that's outlined in the bullet there, in the second bullet and within the ordinance. That is actual or perceived race, color, creed, religion, ancestry, gender, sexual orientation, general identity, physical or mental disability, or national origin of the person. They've also seen it used for harassment is one of the charges that has been used in some of the other places where the one of those protected classes was also related to that. So you were able to do the original crime, and then this one would stack on top of it. So you could be charged with the original crime and then be charged with hate intimidation so long as the parameters are met. The way that works is those crimes, then you get multiple charges which have pretty much double your penalty. So if you were found guilty of assault and your fine was $500, and then you could be also charged with hate intimidation, which would carry a fine of up to $500 or 30 days in jail, just like the previous charge was. Those sentences cannot run concurrently. They run consecutively. So if somebody was given jail time, let's say they were given 30 days for the assault and 30 days for the hate intimidation, they would have to serve 60 days. They would not serve 30 days concurrently. They would serve 30 and then the second charge of 30. If they were fined and only a fine, it would just stack the fine 500 plus 500 for a total of 1,000. So again, the hate intimidation does not stand by itself, but it stacks on top of the base charge that was used for the arrest or the police report. That is the basis of it. I can answer any questions you have, but what I would say, and I would hope that we never have to use this charge inside of Bluffton, that we ever have to charge anybody with hate intimidation, but it does provide a protection for our citizens should anybody be solely targeted for any of these protected classes for any crime that they would occur. This also allows us to take action, knowing about the inaction and the priority that the lack of priority this is received at the state level, and hopefully encourage them to step up and do something at the state level, so that us at the local municipal level wouldn't have to do so because of this. So next steps, if council was to adopt, it does take 2 readings, as this is an ordinance to amend our code. So first reading would be tonight. Second reading would be October 11th, and if council approves it, it would go into effect October 11th. I'll be more than glad to answer any questions.
Questions?
No question, just a comment. I'm extremely proud tonight to see that we have this here and considering it on our docket. Reverend Clementa Pinckney was a parishioner in Bluffton, and I attended his funeral in Charleston after the Charleston massacre, and that's when I became an advocate for the first time for this hate crimes bill. And it's truly been sad and disheartening that our state leadership has not acted on pushing this narrative forward for whatever reasons. But this is true leadership in terms of sometimes stepping out to do what's not always popular, but what we know is the right thing to do. And so I'm just glad to see that while this isn't on the larger scale of being enacted on the state level, we're at least, stamping our position to say that we do take issues like this seriously to offer these additional protections. And my hope is that this will be an inspiration to those who are afraid to move to be vigilant in the same fashion. So thank you for putting this into place and listening to that.
Yes, ma'am. And one thing I would say is every one of us falls underneath one of those classifications in there, regardless of which side of those classifications we fall under. So it protects every citizen within the community.
Our local delegation is all over it, and I know Mayor Marie of Beaufort went to Columbia at the request of Weston and Bill to come speak before one subcommittee or so and really pushed it over to go to the Senate. Senator Davis has done everything he possibly can and really needs our help. There are 5 senators holding it up. And I think I embarrassed one at the Municipal Association, but my filter started coming off then. And I asked why he wouldn't support it. And I think 4 or 5 mayors came to me. I know the Spartanburg mayor, we sent him, wants to know what we're passing. We did it for texting, no texting. And I remember Chief Reynolds over here saying it's not enforceable. I'm like, it doesn't matter. We're going to do it. And now we have a state law. So I think it's baby steps. And I was at that funeral too, and it was sickening. And he was a friend of all of y'all's. But Bridget really brought it to the light with me when Bill Herperson was running for re-election. And it made me really think, golly, why aren't I behind this? Because I should be, because it bothers me. So thank you for shining the light on it here.
Thanks for your continued support on that, Mayor Sokol.
Anything else? Is there a motion to approve first reading of the ordinance amending, well, let me back up. Can we do a pending doctrine on this to really make a statement?
Sure.
Okay. Pending doctrine means it goes into effect tonight. Is there a motion to approve on first reading of an ordinance using the pending doctrine ordinance, amending the Code of Ordinances for the Town of Bluffton by adding 18-137 titled Hate Intimidation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say it by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you. Number 6, Natalie is up. Consideration of an ordinance amending Town of Bluffton fiscal year 2024 budget to provide for the expenditures of certain funds and to allocate sources of revenue for the said funds to carry over unspent expenditures and encumbrances from the FY 2023 budget to the FY 2024 budget. Is first reading. For those of you still here watching us, this is kind of a housekeeping thing we do every August, September-ish.
Yes.
You're up, Natalie.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. I'm pleased to present to you the first budget amendment for the fiscal 24 budget for first reading. This amendment includes the adjustments to the general fund with the setting of the millage rate last month, the $2 million in appropriation for the New River Linear Trail in CIP, use of one-time expenses with projected available fund balance from fiscal year '23, carry forwards for unfinished project and commitments, and a commitment of an additional $700,000 to the capital reserve fund. Currently, we're projecting over $3.5 million available to add to fund balance in the general fund. And now we'll take a look at each of the 6 funds and how this amendment will impact each of them. For the general fund, as noted, we are recognizing the fiscal year '24 millage rate that was set last month with an increase to property tax revenues to support the retention and attraction plan for the police department and the increase in the recycling services. There is $17,571 proposed for contracts and encumbrances that were not completed in '23, and it includes the move of the document management services project that is in CIP, and we're going to move it to the general fund. Proposed are the one-time uses of the prior year fund balance, and they include a class and compensation study of $75,000, an employee retention enhancement expense of $36,550, an additional $90,000 to the Historic Preservation Grant Program, and transfers to CIP, which include $1 million for land acquisition, $150 for the pedestrian safety study, and a new public art project or public art program. And as noted before, committing an additional $700,000 to the capital asset reserve fund. While this is not in the proposed ordinance, we did want to take a moment to recognize 2 changes. 2 items. In personnel for municipal court, we are moving 2 part-time positions into 1 full-time position, and there's no budgetary impact to that. Additionally, within the general fund balance, the town manager would like to assign funds to the public art program, the neighborhood assistance program, and replenish the historic preservation grant program with an additional $62,075 to bring it back to the $250,000. The next fund addressed with this proposed amendment is the local hospitality tax program. This proposes an increase of $1,025,896 for ongoing projects in the CIP. And similarly, we are recommending an increase of $1,406,308 for ongoing projects within the CIP out of local accommodations tax funds. In taking a look at the CIP fund, the amendment includes the $2 million for the New River Linear Trail, the transfers in from the general fund as noted before, and it also includes the movement of the DMS project from CIP to general fund. Additionally, for the ongoing projects in the CIP, it includes the 3 funds discussed prior, as well as an increase to the prior year fund balance and the 2 final funds that we'll look at next. Within the CIP, we are recommending $50,366 to carry forward for contracts and commitments not completed in '23, as well as an increase to the transfer to CIP for ongoing projects. And finally, for debt service, we are recommending an increase of $410,319, again, for ongoing projects within the CIP. And here you see the consolidated summary. This amendment totals $13,853,771 to bring the total budget for the town of Bluffton to $92,426,414. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
You get all that money from, Natalie?
Questions? Questions on this side?
I just want to say I'm glad to see that the public art was funded. We have we set up something for that and it was unfunded, so now I'm glad to see that. Thank you.
On the, Dan mentioned something earlier, and this was on my list of what are our incentive programs, what's the return? And I don't remember getting it. I'd asked Glenn or Stephen to get all of us a list of the Preservation Grant Fund, what's been spent, where it went, what's the revenue that's coming in. So can we get that? Yep. Can you get that for us, please?
We'll get it to you by tomorrow.
Okay. And just send it to all accounts so I don't, if they want it or not. Anyway, that's my only request. Thank you, real thorough. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve first reading of an ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton fiscal year 2024 budget to provide for the expenditures of certain funds, commit additional funds to the capital asset reserve fund, and to allocate sources of revenue for the said funds to carry over unspent expenditures and encumbrances from the 2023 budget to the 2024 budget?
So moved.
Your second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a consent agenda with several items. Is there anything y'all want removed? 9 items?
You can make Derek present if you want to.
I think we just made it. Is there a motion? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We'll expect that in a PowerPoint. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. We have 2 items for executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session for personnel matters regarding town council appointments of boards, committees, and commissions? That's FOIA Act 3470A1, and contractual matters regarding an intergovernmental agreement with Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer Authority and Beaufort County to equally share in the cost to transition connections from septic to sewer in the Stony Creek area pursuant to FOIA 3470A2. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Will there be action from executive session? I don't see any press here. There may be if y'all care to stay, but we can also call the 5 of you. If not. All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. We're going back there. I don't know if any of y'all want me to call you to tell you what action was taken. I'll be glad to do so. Okay. Let's have a slide. Is there a motion to remove Carmen Manning from the May River Watershed Action Plan Advisory Committee and replace vacancy with an eligible candidate?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Fred.
That's a wrap.
You try to set up a meeting with that developer, Fred and I,